Good morning. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street, Colombo. And joining me this morning is Bandula Jayasekara. Very good morning to you, Bandula.
Good morning, fellas.
And how are you doing? Are you enjoying the Christmas songs?
No, it's far too early for Christmas songs. We need some other songs. Maybe,
good.
you know, it's...
And also joining us this morning is Asoka Obesekara, the Executive Director at Transparency International. Good morning to you, Asoka.
Good morning.
And thank you for being up so early and joining us on Newsline.
With pleasure, with pleasure.
And what exactly is Transparency International doing about the appalling lack of transparency in this country, especially in government?
Well, needless to say, our mandate is focused on anti-corruption activities, increasing the understanding of anti-corruption and the processes. But on this particular point of what we're doing, we have done a lot of work on the Declaration of Assets and Liabilities Act. In a nutshell, what that really means to the everyday person is that on the payment of 750 rupees, they can see the asset declaration of a member of parliament or a cabinet minister. And the issue that is really there, though, is that whilst this whole talk of Vatkam Prakasha and everything was like a big thing before the last elections, very few people know what it even looks like.
Right.
And so one thing that we've really been working on recently is that, now I myself, when I'd been working on a website called MTV.lk in the past, had been testing how that system works.
Yeah.
And it works. But the issue is that once I get an asset declaration to my hand, you have the right to one. I have the right to it, but what I have in my hand, if I show it to you, I'm liable to either 1,000 rupee fine or 1 year in jail. And unfortunately, I don't get to choose. And unfortunately, I don't get to choose which one it is.
What does it mean? Does it mean that when I pay my 750 rupees and look at the assets declaration of now, who won't hit me? Let's say Minder.
Yeah.
Or Narmal.
Yeah.
I'd be very interested in looking at the asset declaration Narmal, actually.
Yeah.
Does that mean
MPs or everybody?
No,
it's public servants in general. So if it's a senior judge,
Governor of the central bank, his good friend.
Yes, Governor. I'd like to watch it.
Yeah.
And these asset declarations, are they your personal asset declarations? As in, what about that little bank account you've got stashed away in New York or in Geneva at Credit Suisse?
Yeah.
Do they have to put that in?
Yeah, because what you have to, it's structured in quite an interesting way. Because when you look at someone's asset declaration, the first half of the declaration is what are all of the assets that they held at the first time they were ever liable to file an asset declaration.
Right.
And the second half is the identical thing, but the most recent details.
Right.
Within that, you have to put, the land you have, and it's not only yourself.
What about
it's
overseas assets?
Even, from off the top of my head, I think all assets, including overseas assets, must be filed, must be recorded there.
The reason I say this, Bandula, the reason I'm asking this question is when one Lalit Kotalawala was asked to submit his asset declarations in the matter of the failed Golden Key company, he made his asset declaration, but there was no reference whatsoever to any overseas assets. And it was very clear, on the top it said his assets in Sri Lanka. Now, subsequently we found that he had shares in, not significant, but nevertheless he had shares outside and so on. And that wasn't there. So I was wondering whether when one talks of your assets, whether it's limited to whether it's limited to Sri Lanka.
And also, I have a question from a journalist to Asoka. Why not public get opportunity to get asset declaration of NGO top guns? What have you got to say? It's a question from a journalist from an English newspaper.
Would you all have any objection to that?
On the face of it, I guess the underlying rationale of the current Declaration of Assets and Liabilities Act is really that it's the public servants who are administering public money who are filing their asset declarations. I'll be honest with you, I haven't given that much thought,
But it's a very interesting
What about you?
question.
Can we ask you? Would you be willing to...
You are the head of transparency. How transparent are you going to be?
Would you be happy to publish your asset declaration?
I wouldn't have any reservation in publishing my asset declaration.
Is that a yes?
It'll be quite a humbling experience because there won't be much on it. But
we never know, because at the end of your term at Transparency International, if it's gone up, we'd like to know why.
That's a very good point.
So I'm sure we would have answered this journalist question. I mean, I think we got to be open, because that helps us. Okay.
So let me get this right. But now, under the new things that you all are lobbying for, quite commendable. Does that mean that I can now get the asset declaration, which I can now anyway? But having got it, under the new lobbying that you all are trying to get done, I would then be able to write about it, I would be able to publish it, I'd be able to do what I want with it.
Absolutely that. And the thing is that it just ensures that the right that everyone already has, I mean, people can just share the information that they already have the right to. And on the 9th of December, which is International Anti-Corruption Day, we've now created this bill with the Cabinet Memorandum, and we are going to hand it over to the President and the Prime Minister.
And how hopeful are you that the Prime Minister, as the Managing Director of this government, how hopeful are you that Mr. Wickremesinghe will be amenable to this?
Well, in the past he has said that he has no problem in disclosing his own...
But in the past he was in the opposition.
Indeed. I mean, I'd like to think... I mean, we can only try. We can't not do it because someone is... I mean, we don't operate under political will. We have to sort of venture forth. But I think the thing is that when you look at this sort of thing, it'll be deeply unpopular if, let's say, the media were to catch on to this sort of bill. It's deeply unpopular to turn around and say, no, we don't want to pass this law because it just furthers the rights of the citizens to disseminate this. So, I mean, I believe that with a bit of media coverage and the rest, I mean, there could be some traction here.
Asoka, I don't know about a little bit of media coverage. You will get a whole lot of media coverage because this is at the heart of the people's opposition.
And we are the opposition. And also for us, like the Deputy Editor of the Island, Shaminda Ferdinando, he's one of our regular viewers. He's asking this question from you. He said Dr. Kumar Rupesinghe got $6 million US from Norway, Asoka's main sponsor.
Is that true?
Is that true? Because your main funder is Norway. I went through your website today. So this is what they're asking.
I mean,
these are viewers' questions.
Sure. I mean,
I know you are new to that.
I mean, I'm only a few weeks in, but I'm not very sure of Dr. Kumar Rupesinghe's. I have no idea really of his situation.
But your main funder is Norway.
Absolutely. I think.
So does that mean you take a Norwegian leaning?
Absolutely not. And I think the important thing is this. Now, even for someone like myself coming into this sort of work, I mean, it's not like I can afford a lavish lifestyle privately, but I'm very financially independent from this sort of work. I think the main thing for someone like myself is that our organization, let's say even with this Declaration of Assets and Liabilities Act, I mean, it's important that we do this sort of work irrespective. We don't turn around and say, well, this is a good piece of work, but we won't do it because there isn't any money. Right, but we have to really be proactive in getting this stuff done.
How proactive, how much on the ball is Transparency International when it comes to lobbying the government on transparency?
So I'll give you a good example. Now, very recently, I wrote a couple of articles on the Open Government Partnership. Now, that is something that the Sri Lankan government was a potential signatory to, we qualified to sign up to, but no one across the media anywhere was really catching on to this. Now, the Open Government Partnership, in a nutshell, basically means that the government has to, in consultation with civil society, creates a agenda, a 2-year agenda, like the 100-day manifesto, of what they will do by what date. Now, we have been very, very proactive in trying to be the main civil society organizer to convene civil society organizations, and we have to engage government now in ensuring that there's a national action plan by the 30th of June next year.
So
being proactive.
How many times and how many other organizations have you been able to convene together to lobby the government on transparency on, let's say, the central bank bond issue or the misuse of public funds when it came to the highways? In this government we're talking about.
Yeah.
How many times have you all at least written an email to the Prime Minister and lobbied the need for transparency?
Yeah.
There is no transparency.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister hides behind the general statements like he's going to have a 10-year investigation into the bonds.
Yeah.
But he is in essence misleading the Republic, because he maintains that in terms of the bond, that these things happen rather during President Rajapaksa's tenure.
Faraz, maybe if I, with your permission now, see, I think Asoka seems to be is a fresh face to this organization, but I don't think he still has swum with the sharks. I'm sure you will be swimming with the sharks.
If you don't know the answer to that, I suggest that when you get back today, you need to find out, because we'll have you back on the show and ask you the same question.
And about the walk.
But maybe one thing I will add, though, which is something which I do have a little bit of experience, is, let's say, how we've convened civil society for the Right to Information Bill.
Right.
So, let's say with the initial draft, and this is before my time, but with the initial draft bill, civil society organizations gave a lot of input into that bill. And now the most recent bill that we've seen now has actually incorporated many of civil society's suggestions. So in things like the Right to Information Bill, we convened civil society, we got a lot of feedback, and that's reflected in the bill now.
Can you tell us, I had your colleague Shan Vijetung on my program, and a member from the Bribery Commission. Now you're going to have an awareness campaign. Can you just tell briefly about this walk you're going to do to create awareness?
Yeah, so basically on the 9th of December is the International Anti-Corruption Day. So basically at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th, we are convening in Viharamadevi Park near the Buddha Shrine. And we're going to be marching from there to Independence Square, where at 4 p.m.
But a short walk, isn't that a short walk to create awareness?
Very short. Maybe there are people who are overweight.
So
like you.
But even prior to that, in this last week, we have a memorandum of understanding with Seabok for this. And we've been assisting Seabok with other civil society organizations in having different things all over the country, in fact. So, in raising awareness. But the key thing, in my opinion, on the 9th of December, is this Declaration of Assets and Liabilities Amendment Bill, which will be presented. Because that is really what this is just one day. But the lasting impact of something like that bill, which even as you yourself said, can allow you to start publishing all of these things, that is something lasting.
And you expect those members of parliament who will be present to take an oath, and are you going to believe them? I'm sure they can take an oath just for the camera.
I know, but there is value in it nonetheless. One can hope that they're sincere.
I'm going to ask you this.
No.
For this walk, how many of these politicians have you invited, requested, whatever it is? How many of them will be joining you, do you think?
All I know is that because a lot of the invitations are also being handled by Seabok, the Bribery Commission. So I know that the President and the Prime Minister have been invited. I don't really know much beyond that, unfortunately.
Maybe that's why the short
what
walk
about
for us.
what about the Governor of the Central Bank?
I have no idea.
Well, I think you should extend an invitation to him.
Maybe for us you could give him an open invitation.
No,
through news.
Do you think I could, if he's on the walk, do you think I could also be on the walk?
I can't see any issue with that whatsoever.
Because I'm sure they will approve his lookalike.
Yeah.
Lookalike
indeed.
join the walk.
What I want to ask you is, let's get serious. I want to ask you, is the problem more that it doesn't really matter about dumb politicians? Isn't it the people who are dumb to keep electing these people? Time and time and time and time again.
It's...
How much of that is a problem?
now, prior to me taking on this role, I was running a website called Newsfirst.lk, which analyzes everything that's said and done in Parliament. Very, very rich data set. I mean, it is clear that the way in which politics and is covered in the media, things like that, there are certain issues in the way things are covered.
I'll tell you what the issue is, Asoka. See these hands you used to type usually? Well, they're tied behind the back when we work as journalists. It's only now that we've got one arm sort of here.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the problem, because there may not be white vans, but there are economic vans, and there are all sorts of other pressures that are rather subtly applied, and so we can't really practice our job as we'd like to.
But the one thing I will say there, though, is that, I mean, even when I look at the, let's say, the media contacts of different parliamentarians, I've noticed in the way that we've coded Parliament, there are lots of MPs who are the ones who are really focusing on the key issues. They don't necessarily have very good media contacts, and so as a consequence, they don't get any outside credit for some of the contributions they make.
As you leave today, we'll give you the MTV telephone number. It's on 24/7. In the meantime, we've got to take a break. Stay tuned and learn more about Transparency International. A jolly good morning to you, and this is Newsline live from Newsfirst studios here in Dawson Street with Bandulja Sekra and Asoka Obey Sekra. When you say that these people don't have enough media contacts and so on, I must bring you up to speed. Shakti, Sirasa and MTV, and in no particular order, we are all committed to carrying the message to the people. And we played a very pivotal role in the regime change election in January, and then thereafter too. And our number comes up on the screen now, and we are always amenable to having anybody, irrespective of their political
I mean,
and so on.
actually, my comment is not necessarily directed at a particular TV station, but I think it is a broader issue, which is that there are people who do a lot of work who don't necessarily get covered, and sometimes the way in which things are covered, there is sometimes more focus given to the theatre of Parliament than some of the hard-nosed content,
Ashoka,
which is less popular.
Program, we have invited several open invitations to ministers, MPs, officials.
I shall name them now.
Yes, and there's no response.
I shall name them. Tilak Karunaratne from the SEC, Ms. Talata Korale from Foreign Employment,
Nimal Siripal
Silva, Bandula Gunawardana, Vasudeva Nanekara, Dinesh Gunawardana. We have invited them.
I must say though, that all those names you listed out are all
rather active
and they're people who are very, very well known.
Right.
I mean, those are national figures. There are some people,
but they seem unable to wake up a little bit early and turn up here.
This we have open to everybody. We have lots of issues to discuss, and which we discuss freely. So that's there. They have to come. We give them the forum, and we ask them the questions.
Sure. No, I mean,
I'm saying that's what we know, which we are open. Like say lots of transport issues. And unfortunately, Ms. Nirmal Siripal is always asleep.
There were a number asleep during the budget reading.
But I'll mention another thing on this issue of transparency as well that you're touching. Within the Right to Information Bill, when I was going through it, there's one very, very big gap which exists in that bill, and that is the protection which is given to a whistleblower within the public service. Now, if you look at any of the sort of, for lack of better words, best practice right to information bills, there is protection for whistleblowers, for them to, if they see any wrongdoing within their department or anything else, they are protected under their bill to actually highlight that. even if it's committing an offence under some archaic establishment code or anything, they are entitled to do that. Under the present Right to Information Bill as it currently stands, this is section 41 if I'm not mistaken, what it says is that that public servant has to first determine whether what they're trying to expose can anyway be requested through the Right to Information Bill as it stands. What that means in practice is that no one will ever feel empowered to ever highlight any wrongdoing that they encounter.
Well,
and that's a big, and that is a big gap in our RTI bill, which is not being given any attention.
I just want to say that if there are any whistleblowers out there, and you really want to blow your whistle, the number of MTV, Sirisa, Shakti, the number is the same. It comes up on your screen shortly. Keep a note of it and make a call, because you can do so with great anonymity, and the People's Channel will look into it.
Asoka, how transparent is transparent international?
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as I said, I'm a few weeks in, but I mean, if you go onto our website, I mean, there's like a
and your website is
tisrilanka.org.
tisrilanka.org. The website for transparency.
I mean, if you go on that, you can sort of see the our funding schedule. I hope
that I saw.
I hope it's up to date. Yeah. I mean, like you know.
And what's your background, Asoka? What do you bring to the table? What's your background?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a barrister by training.
Okay.
And I've studied law and political and postgraduate studies in political science.
And you've chosen the Supreme Court over. Or you've not chosen Supreme Court. You've chosen Skeleton Road.
Yes, yeah. So I don't practice law.
Right.
But I'm sort of very interested in sort of the legislative side of the world. So digging through registration, trying to amend provisions, sections.
But then you'll be with your background in law. You'll be the best person to fire off letters every morning to all these ministers and say, "Come on, chaps, what are you doing? Lack of transparency." If you do it long enough and hard enough, you may well make that change.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll give you an example of something which I did a few months ago.
Okay.
The consultative committees of Parliament are completely opaque. No member of the public could go there, no member of the media could go there, and yet with Mantri.lk, we were tracking what was going on in Parliament. And people turned around and said, "Oh, we do all our work in the consultative committees of Parliament, and you're not giving us any credit for the work that we do there." So we turned around and said, "Look, we don't have any information." So based on that, the former Chief Government Whip just gave a call and said, "Can you give a two-pager on what other Commonwealth countries do to disseminate their consultative committees?"
And who was the former government?
Former Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. And then within a month, across all the newspapers, historic day in Parliament, Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Chamal Rajapaksa, former Speaker of Parliament now, have released all of the minutes of all of the consultative committees on a monthly basis. So now we can see who's active, who attends, all of those sorts of things.
Asoka, why don't you have that in Sinhala and Tamil also? It's important to have this Mantri.lk.
It is. It's there in Sinhala and Tamil as well.
So Mantri.lk is available in the other two languages.
Indeed. Mantri.lk operates in all three languages, and I think one thing that's quite important there as well is that one thing is that the public can engage, but I know that there are political talk shows which, let's say, have asked prominent ministers to come on their show, and then a minister said one thing, but based on what Mantri.lk has said, they say, but Minister, on the 5th of June last year, you have said that actually this was the issue in your ministry, not this. And that is all being driven through the data.
And this Mantri.lk is free of charge.
Absolutely, and and
available for anybody or any corporate, anything to use.
Well, yeah, I mean it's open, but the one thing I know for sure, I'm no longer running it. It's run at Verite Research, where I used to work. But the one thing I know is that if any journalist is interested in, let's say, asking questions, interviewing an MP or a minister or anything, Mantri.lk for nothing, at least for now, will provide a full breakdown of what the minister or MP has said on any issue over any time.
Asoka, we had Minister Arjuna Ranathung on our program last week.
Yes.
And he said a lawyer did an investigation onto Port Authority, and he did it free of charge. But the former head of transparency, you know, it was very much a media focus where he did some investigation on Sri Lankan Airlines. He charged a big amount.
Yeah.
So what have you got to say? In fact, I asked Shan Wijetung also on that, so I want to know as the head, because that brought your organization into disrepute.
I think I assume what you're referring to is Mr. Valiamuna.
Yeah,
Mr. Valiamuna,
millions.
That's right. 3.5 million
I mean, my understanding of that is that Mr. Valiamuna has been taken on in his professional capacity as a lawyer. He hasn't really been engaged through TI Sri Lanka. So
he came to limelight because of Transparency International, because he did campaign. So that's how, you know, he was recognized, known.
Yeah, but I think it would be a little unfair on him to say that any professional engagement
we'll get in touch with him and we'll see if we can get him
after all,
on the
he
show.
is human too.
Yeah. Indeed, and he may you know, feel that he has to charge for his work. But today is rather an interesting day, and it has all the promises of being an interesting day, because finally the FCID finally are very close to launching a real prosecution and not sending people only to remand, and that is in the matter of the missing Nalika Godaheva, the former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, who we are told has not turned up to the FCID offices as he was requested to last Friday. His lawyers have promised that he will turn up some point today. We are obviously all watching the space and waiting to see if the FCID will actually carry on and do this. But good luck to the FCID, because finally they have come to the point where they are sort of earning their space here.
And are you getting an exclusive with Godaheva?
Well, we have tried to reach Mr. Godaheva and asked him to pass by our station. We also asked him to pass by if he was interested in Face the Nation last Friday. He was unfortunately unobtainable, but I sent him an email actually. So on that note, we're coming to the end of this program. But let me ask you, Asoka, are you really hopeful that we will have better transparency? In Kenya some years ago, when there was a lot of talk about transparency and so on, the government said, yes, we're doing action. So the first thing they did is the customs hall, the bit where the public can see in, it used to be a brick wall. They took the brick wall out and they put glass there, so people could see. So there was transparency. Do you think that Sri Lanka is headed in the right direction for better transparency?
I think the fact that the government, and I must add through no pushing of civil society, the fact that they've signed up to things like the Open Government Partnership, things like that, I mean, are commitments which they will finally end up having to hold good to. So, I mean, there are positive steps. Whether what the public expect is being met is another matter, and I'm hoping that things like this amendment to the Declaration of Assets and Liabilities Act, things like that will move things in the right direction, and I'd encourage anyone watching to join in us or join in at Independence Square at 4 p.m. on Wednesday in our push to get things like this passed.
Thank you, Asoka Obesekra, for being on our show, for being on Newsline.
With pleasure.
And do come back. And Bandra, thank you for your input.
Thank you, Faras.
You don't know who is important to you until you actually lose them. Mahatma Gandhi. On that note, thank you for watching Newsline. Do keep tuned to Newsline. We will bring you all the best views and the news. Take care, have a good day, and God bless you.